So again, I'll take my purview as moderator to ask the first couple questions, but please, everybody else, let me know in the chat if you have questions to ask, and I'll call on you after I ask mine. So I'm intrigued by your numeric results that you just hinted at. The HESRPT results, in some sense, they're a little unfair in that they're using a lot more information in the algorithm since you're non-clairvoyant, but the equi is not. So can you comment, like, how broadly did you experiment? Since these are worst case bounds, you could imagine that there, are some
Right. So these are
things
yeah.
where they're closer.
So these are actually not worst case simulations, because it's very difficult to find what is the worst input. So these are actually stochastic. So one gives a Poisson input and then tries to simulate this. So it turned out equi. So this matches to the earlier paper as well, like the paper last year's performance. That equi and SRPT is actually very close to their performance. So we see the same thing. But what turns out that the algorithm which we propose and show it's a constant competitive, that's remarkably large flow time compared to these two algorithms. So there is a big gap to be bridged right now. But what is difficult is how to analyze them in the online setting is not there.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big difference, but I could imagine that, maybe I can talk to you offline, but I could imagine that there are some situations where equi could be made to perform quite bad, and I wonder how your algorithm would do in those cases. And so maybe in a worst case sense, it's much closer.
So that's precisely my last point, was that lower bound seems to be hard for this problem. How do you construct bad input sequences? That's not easy. And that's where I think your heart of the question lies, that how do you stretch these algorithms in the bad sequence case?
Yeah, very interesting. And then I guess the other question, which builds on that, is if I understand it, these numerics are not in your general case where you have the some power constraint. Do you have similar results in that case? Showing the gap?
That's right. So we get something very similar.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. Okay, so I see at least one in the chat. So Subhateja, would you like to go?
I have a quick clarification question. So in most of the talk, except the last part on the power constraint, the servers are not really servers, right? They're not discrete. You're assuming that you can.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So it's almost like processor sharing, and the question is how much
you
capacity
can
for each job. Okay.
That's correct. It's a slight simplification. There are papers in the CS community which looked at these discrete cases also and got slightly worse results.
Yeah. I see. Okay.
And in the discrete case, there are some lower bounds, I believe, right? Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off, Subhateja. You keep going.
I have another question on the power constraint part. So
yes.
I missed what you said. Did you say that the power problem is identical, equivalent to the total flow time? So it's not any more general, is it?
So yeah, I refrain from making it more general. What we actually do is we enhance the objective function. So instead of just calling it flow time, we add flow time plus the energy consumption. That even with some power constraint, it's not obvious that the servers will actually always use the total power. So the real general problem really we consider is that flow time plus the energy. So that is what the real general problem is.
That is general. Okay. If I'm only interested in...
So these are two equivalent problems. The way I put it, they're actually equivalent.
Okay, got it.
Perfect.
But somebody put yesterday a nice spin on the electric vehicle thing, which I need to think about, that is this an equivalent problem for the electric vehicle charging farm or not?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a mapping to a version of the electric vehicle problem. There are many versions of the electric vehicle problem, of course.
Right.
But I think definitely it's an interesting direction to go. So with that, let's thank you again, Rahul. And